and Jason were spotted kissing at the Den on the Sunset Strip on September 26. And Jason is married to his high school sweetheart, Jessica Usuri.
Behind the bright lights of country music, some love stories did not end softly. Some stayed faithful in marriage, while some did things that embarrassed and hurt their spouses in front of the whole world. How did love turn into humiliation? Who paid the highest price? Join us as we count down 15 country stars who humiliated their spouses publicly. Number 15, Jason Aldean. At the height of his career, Jason Aldean was seen as a solid family man in country music. He had success on the charts, a loyal fan base, and a long marriage to his high school sweetheart, Jessica Usuri. To many fans, his life looked stable and grounded, especially in an industry known for temptation. That image made what happened next far more painful and humiliating. In the year 2012, photos surfaced showing Aldean in a crowded bar behaving intimately with another woman who was not his wife. These images were taken late at night, but once they reached the internet, the time no longer mattered. Within hours, blogs, entertainment sites, and social media pages were sharing them at lightning speed. The pictures were clear, undeniable, and impossible to explain away. For Jessica Usuri, this humiliation did not happen in private. It unfolded in front of millions. Aldean released a public apology soon after. While the statement admitted wrongdoing, it could not undo the damage. The apology itself became another public moment that confirmed the betrayal. Instead of protecting his marriage, it exposed how deeply the trust had been broken. Meanwhile, Jessica chose silence. She did not respond publicly, did not argue online, and did not defend herself in interviews. That silence became powerful. It allowed the public to clearly see who had caused the pain. Media attention soon shifted to the other woman involved, Brittany Kerr. Her name, face, and past were pulled into the spotlight, adding layers of embarrassment to an already painful situation. Jessica was forced to watch her private marriage dissolve in public, while the story was repeatedly replayed for entertainment. Eventually, the marriage ended. Aldean moved forward with his career almost untouched, continuing to release music and tour. He later married Brittany Kerr, turning the scandal into a permanent part of his personal story. For Jessica, however, the humiliation came without reward. Her marriage ended not quietly but loudly, leaving a lasting example of how one night can publicly dismantle a family. So, if one careless night could shatter a marriage completely, wait until you see what happens when a country star admits humiliation with his own words. Number 14, Jimmie Allen. Jimmie Allen rose quickly in country music as a fresh, positive voice. He was celebrated for breaking barriers and presenting himself as a devoted husband and father. His marriage to Alexis Gale appeared loving and supportive, often highlighted in public appearances and online posts. Together, they represented modern stability in country music. That image changed dramatically when Allen shared a public apology on social media. In it, he admitted to humiliating his wife through an affair. The wording alone was enough to shock fans. Instead of vague language, the apology was direct, leaving no room for doubt. Once again, a private failure became public knowledge in seconds. The timing of this apology made the situation far worse. It appeared during a period when Allen was already facing intense public scrutiny due to a legal dispute involving his former manager. While he denied serious accusations and claimed a consensual relationship, the overlap of events made the situation deeply uncomfortable. For Alexis Gale, the humiliation was magnified. Her pain was not just shared online, but discussed endlessly by strangers. Public reaction shifted quickly. Sympathy moved away from Allen and toward Alexis. People analyzed her reactions, her silence, and her strength, turning her into an unwilling public figure in her own marriage crisis. This kind of exposure adds pressure that few relationships survive. Although Allen attempted to take responsibility, the apology did lasting damage. It did not repair the marriage, and it did not protect his career. Trust was broken on both personal and professional levels. His image as a dependable partner disappeared almost overnight. The long-term effects were serious. His reputation suffered, his family life changed permanently, and the public humiliation could not be erased. Number 13, Garth Brooks. For decades, Garth Brooks was seen as untouchable. He was not just a country star, but a symbol of success, loyalty, and hard work. During the peak of his career, he was married to Sandy Mall, who supported him as fame grew larger than life. For many years, their marriage seemed protected from scandal. That image changed years later, not through rumors, but through honesty. In a 2013 interview, Brooks admitted that he had been unfaithful during his first marriage. Although the confession came long after the marriage had ended, it reopened emotional wounds. For Sandy Mall, this was a delayed humiliation. The truth, once revealed, became public knowledge rather than a private resolution. The confession was calm and reflective, but its impact was heavy. It forced the public to re-examine the past and view their marriage through a different lens. Sandy, who had moved on quietly with her life, was once again connected to a painful chapter she did not choose to revisit publicly. What made this situation especially uncomfortable was the contrast. Brooks gained praise for honesty, while Sandy received renewed attention tied to betrayal she had already endured. Ingipon, her dignity, stood in silence, while his words reshaped the narrative. If a quiet confession can hurt this deeply, imagine what happens when personal mistakes are hidden inside love songs, for the whole world to decode. Number 12, Sam Hunt. Sam Hunt built his career on emotional honesty. His songs often focused on love, longing, and vulnerability, which helped fans connect deeply with his music. When he married Hannah Lee Fowler, many believed his real-life story matched the romance in his lyrics. That belief began to crack when Fowler filed for divorce, citing inappropriate marital conduct. While the filing was later withdrawn, the language alone raised questions. It suggested behavior that went beyond simple disagreement. Fans quickly began revisiting Hunt's music, searching for meaning hidden between the lines. Songs that once felt romantic were suddenly reinterpreted as confessions. Listeners connected lyrics to real events, turning his art into evidence of personal failure. This placed Fowler in an uncomfortable position, as her private struggles were now being discussed publicly through song analysis. Although the divorce filing was paused, the damage was already done. Public curiosity grew, and speculation filled the silence. Hunt had unintentionally turned his relationship into public entertainment, where every lyric felt like a clue. Number 11. Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson built his public identity around freedom, rebellion, and living by his own rules. Fans admired his outlaw image and saw it as part of his musical magic. However, behind that image was a marriage that suffered deeply. His relationship with his first wife, Martha Matthews, was marked by instability, emotional chaos, and repeated embarrassment that unfolded quietly but painfully. While Willie's career grew, his behavior at home became unpredictable. He was often absent, drank heavily, and had a reputation for womanizing. These actions were not hidden well. Friends, musicians, and insiders knew what was happening, and over time, stories leaked into the public space. What should have been warning signs were often retold as funny stories or wild legends, turning serious marital pain into entertainment. Martha Matthews was left to carry the weight of this behavior. Each time Willie's actions became public knowledge, it reflected back on her. She was not the one living recklessly, yet she was the one silently absorbing the shame. The humiliation did not come from a single moment, but from repeated patterns that chipped away at dignity. Over time, the line between humor and humiliation became blurred. Fans laughed at stories that were actually signs of deep marital damage. In that era, bad behavior from male stars was often excused or romanticized, while their wives were expected to endure quietly. This cultural acceptance allowed Willie's reputation to grow, while his marriage deteriorated. Eventually, the relationship collapsed. Willie's legacy continued to flourish, but accountability for the emotional harm caused was rarely discussed. His music became timeless, yet the pain within that early marriage remained part of the cost of fame. If long-term bad behavior could quietly wear down a marriage like this, wait until you hear what happens when private anger is suddenly heard by the entire world. Number 10. Billy Ray Cyrus. Billy Ray. Cyrus experienced several phases of fame, from early stardom to later reinvention. His later marriage to Fire Rose drew strong public interest, especially because of the age difference and sudden romance. Many were curious, but few expected the relationship to end in such public embarrassment. When the marriage began to fall apart, legal filings revealed serious accusations. However, the situation escalated dramatically when leaked audio recordings surfaced. These recordings captured private conversations filled with anger and harsh words. What was meant to stay behind closed doors was suddenly available to the public. The spread was immediate. Social media, news outlets, and entertainment platforms shared reactions in real time. People were no longer guessing what was happening inside the marriage. They were hearing it. This removed all privacy and left no room for quiet resolution. For Fire Rose, the humiliation was intense. Hearing private verbal attacks replayed publicly stripped away dignity and control. She was forced to relive painful moments while strangers formed opinions based on fragments of her personal life. Public reaction was divided. Some criticized Billy Ray's behavior, while others focused on the shock of hearing raw, unfiltered rage. What stood out most was the modern danger of recorded anger. In a digital age, emotional outbursts can be preserved forever. Number 9. Sara Evans. Sara Evans spent years building a reputation as one of country music's most respected female voices. She was known for emotional honesty in her songs, strong performances, and a grounded public image. For a long time, her personal life stayed mostly out of the spotlight. That changed when her marriage to Craig Chesney began to fall apart in a very public way. Instead of ending quietly, the divorce unfolded through legal filings that quickly became public records. These documents contained serious claims and counterclaims that attracted immediate media attention. Entertainment outlets and tabloids picked up the story, turning private marital conflict into daily headlines. What should have been a personal legal process became something the public followed closely, almost like a drama series. As the case continued, the conflict did not cool down. More filings appeared, and each one brought renewed attention. Accusations were discussed openly in the press, even though they were part of a legal process meant to resolve issues, not entertain the public. The longer the divorce dragged on, the more humiliating it became for both sides, especially for Sara, whose career depended on public trust and respect. The situation became even more painful because children were involved. While their privacy was protected as much as possible, the public nature of the divorce still affected the family. Anytime a new detail emerged, it created more stress and emotional pressure. Being a parent while navigating such intense public scrutiny added another layer of hardship. Media coverage played a major role in worsening the humiliation. Headlines often focused on the most dramatic parts of the filings, sometimes without context. This made the situation feel louder and harsher than it already was. Sara's music, talent, and achievements were temporarily overshadowed by legal conflict. Over time, the divorce ended, but the public exposure left a lasting mark. Number 8. Tim McGraw. Tim McGraw is one of the most successful figures in country music, known for decades of chart-topping songs and a powerful stage presence. Alongside his career, his marriage to Faith Hill became one of the most admired relationships in the industry. To fans, they appeared strong, united, and deeply connected. However, behind that image were challenges that came with constant fame and pressure. As Tim's career expanded, his schedule became intense. Touring, recording, and public appearances kept him away from home for long periods. Over time, he later acknowledged that he was not always emotionally present as a husband. While these reflections were shared as part of personal growth, they also revealed moments where his absence placed strain on the marriage. This type of humiliation was quiet and subtle. It did not involve scandal, betrayal, or dramatic headlines. Instead, it came from emotional distance. Being married to someone who is physically present but emotionally unavailable can be deeply painful, especially when the world assumes everything is perfect. Faith Hill carried this exposure with grace. She did not publicly criticize or respond with anger. Still, the public acknowledgement of emotional absence brought private struggles into the open. Fans began to look back at interviews and performances with a new understanding, realizing that success often comes with unseen costs. What made this situation different was that honesty itself caused the exposure. Tim's intention was not to embarrass his wife, but to take responsibility for past shortcomings. Even so, the admission highlighted how emotional neglect can affect a relationship just as deeply as more obvious mistakes. Number 7. Keith Urban. Urban achieved global success that very few country artists ever reach. His talent, international tours, and crossover appeal placed him at the top of the music world. At the same time, his marriage to Nicole Kidman drew constant attention. Together, they were seen as a powerful couple admired across music and film. However, behind that polished image was a private struggle that soon became public. Keith had been open about battling addiction earlier in his life. When he married Nicole, many believed that chapter was behind him. Unfortunately, not long after their wedding, he experienced a relapse. This was not something that unfolded quietly. News of his return to treatment became public almost immediately. Media outlets covered it non-stop, framing it as a crisis within the marriage. Nicole suddenly found herself under a harsh spotlight. Instead of being seen only as a successful actress and partner, she was often described as a caretaker. The narrative placed responsibility on her shoulders, even though addiction is deeply personal and complex. This framing was humiliating in a quiet but heavy way. It suggested helplessness, as if love alone should have been enough to prevent the struggle. The humiliation did not come from wrongdoing, but from exposure. Addiction stripped privacy away from both of them. Every step Keith took toward recovery was documented publicly. Meanwhile, the emotional cost Nicole carried remained mostly invisible. She had to support her husband while also managing public judgment and constant questions. Keith's recovery eventually became part of his public story. He spoke openly about getting help and rebuilding his life. While this transparency helped many people, it did not erase the strain placed on his marriage. Public recovery may look inspiring, but private healing is far more demanding. If addiction could quietly place this much weight on a marriage, wait until you see what happens when love timelines collide under the public eye. Number 6. Blake Shelton. Blake Shelton and Miranda Lambert were once considered country music royalty. Their marriage brought together two powerful artists with shared success and deep fan loyalty. For years, they were admired as a couple who understood the pressures of fame. When their marriage ended, however, the way events unfolded created public doubt and lasting humiliation. The divorce announcement came suddenly. Not long after, Blake entered a new relationship that quickly became public. The speed of this transition raised questions. Fans and media began examining timelines, trying to understand when one relationship ended and another began. Silence from those involved only fueled speculation. This uncertainty became its own form of humiliation. Miranda was left in a difficult position. Without clear explanations, public imagination filled the gaps. Even without proof of wrongdoing, unanswered questions created suspicion. Being forced to live under rumors rather than facts is emotionally exhausting. Blake continued forward with confidence, while Miranda maintained dignity and restraint. She focused on her career and avoided public confrontation. Still, the imbalance was noticeable. One partner appeared to move on easily, while the other was left standing in the shadow of public doubt. Celebrity relationships are judged harshly. Every action or lack of action is analyzed. In this case, silence became louder than words. The humiliation came not from confirmed betrayal, but from perception. Public judgment can be just as damaging as truth. Number 5. Miranda Lambert. Miranda Lambert built her place in country music through hard work, strong will, and a clear sense of who she was. From the beginning, she was known as fearless, confident, and unwilling to shrink herself for anyone. Fans admired her honesty and independence, and her career continued to grow bigger year after year. With awards, chart success, and respect across the industry, Miranda became one of the most powerful women in country music. When she entered marriages with fellow artists, including Blake Shelton, the balance between love and public image slowly became complicated. Two successful people sharing a life can be beautiful, but when one career rises faster or shines brighter, public attention can quietly shift power inside the relationship. In Miranda's case, the spotlight often focused heavily on her strength, her voice, and her independence. Many of Miranda's public statements about self-worth and standing strong were meant to inspire others. However, when those words were shared widely, they sometimes created a different picture than intended. Fans and media began to read these messages as signs that she did not need anyone, including her spouse. Even if that was not the truth, perception matters deeply when millions are watching. Over time, media stories often framed Miranda as dominant and her partner as secondary. This kind of framing can slowly humiliate without loud scandals or cruel words. When one partner is constantly praised as powerful, while the other is quietly minimized, it can feel like being erased. Public praise, when uneven, can become painful inside a marriage. This type of humiliation is subtle. It does not come from insults or betrayal. It comes from imbalance. It comes from interviews, headlines, and repeated narratives that suggest one person holds all the control. Even when unintentional, it can damage respect and emotional safety. Miranda continued to succeed and evolve as an artist, yet the attention on her personal life never faded. Every action, every comment, and every achievement was viewed as part of a larger story about power in her relationships. And if success alone can slowly bend a marriage under pressure, what happens when deep grief enters the picture before anyone understands the pain? Number 4. Luke Bryan. Luke Bryan is known for his warmth, humor, and ability to make people feel happy through his music. On stage, he brings energy and joy, and fans often see him as steady and strong. But behind that image, Luke faced deep personal loss that changed his life forever. The passing of close family members left emotional wounds that could not be easily healed. Grief does not follow a schedule. It does not pause when the lights turn on. Yet Luke's career demanded that he keep moving forward. Tours continued. Appearances were expected. Smiles were required. While his heart was carrying heavy loss, the world still wanted entertainment. This created a painful imbalance between private suffering and public performance. During this time, emotional withdrawal began to appear. Not because Luke stopped caring, but because grief drains energy and focus. Loss can make a person quiet, distant, and exhausted. From the outside, however, people often misunderstand this silence. What is actually pain can be mistaken for neglect or coldness. Public judgment made things harder. Fans and media noticed moments where Luke seemed less present emotionally. Without knowing the full story, assumptions were made. Silence was viewed as emotional distance. Grief was mistaken for detachment. This misunderstanding created a quiet form of humiliation, especially within his marriage. Luke's spouse stood beside him during this difficult period. Supporting someone who is grieving while also facing public attention is incredibly demanding. She had to remain strong while the world watched, often without compassion for what was happening behind closed doors. The humiliation here was not loud or cruel. It was subtle and deeply human. It came from being judged during moments of vulnerability. This type of public pressure can make private healing harder. When a marriage is observed through incomplete information, even love can be questioned unfairly. Luke and his family had to navigate loss while protecting their bond from outside voices that did not understand their pain. Over time, Luke found ways to honor his loved ones while slowly reconnecting emotionally. Healing took patience, space, and understanding. And if grief can cause this much misunderstanding in a marriage, what happens when betrayal enters the spotlight next? Number 3. Kenny Chesney. Kenny Chesney is one of country music's most beloved stars. For years, he built an image of warmth, charm, and emotional depth through his songs. Fans admired the way he wrote about love, friendship, freedom, and the joy of simple moments. His music painted pictures of sunsets on beaches, small-town life, and the excitement of young love. People connected with him because he seemed honest and approachable, someone who understood both happiness and heartache. His public image was strong, dependable, and welcoming, making his personal life something fans naturally watched with curiosity. When news broke that Kenny had married a globally famous actress, it shocked the public. The relationship felt sudden and surprising, yet exciting. Fans and media alike were eager to see how two high-profile stars would manage love, fame, and careers. The attention on their marriage was intense from the start. Every photo, every appearance, and every interview became a story for the press to analyze. At first, it seemed like a fairy tale pairing, a moment of excitement in the world of celebrity. But this story did not unfold as expected. The marriage turned out to be extremely brief. Shortly after the wedding, an annulment was announced, leaving fans and the public confused. No clear explanation was given. Instead of clarity, there were only vague statements, which created more questions than answers. In the absence of explanation, rumors began to spread. The media and online communities rushed to fill the silence. Each report seemed to grow bigger, more invasive, and more speculative than the last. People examined every detail: body language and public appearances, interviews from the past, and even small gestures caught on camera. Without answers, fans and commentators created their own stories, and many of these stories were shared as if they were facts. This confusion became a source of humiliation for both Kenny and his spouse. Unlike betrayal or a public scandal, this embarrassment came from uncertainty and lack of control. Private decisions became public debate, and personal feelings were discussed openly without consent. The couple had no control over the narrative, allowing strangers to define what had happened in their marriage. Even those who knew the truth could not stop speculation, leaving a lingering sense of discomfort and exposure. For Kenny, this situation clashed sharply with his public image. His music had always spoken of honesty, connection, and emotional sincerity. Yet, his marriage ended quietly and inexplicably, creating a confusing contrast for fans. For his partner, the attention was equally difficult. Fame provided no shield from public scrutiny. Personal boundaries were crossed daily, and every step they took together or apart was dissected for public consumption. So, if quiet confusion could turn love into a public puzzle, wait until you see how even calm honesty can still leave deep marks. Number 2. Stalls, Alan Jackson. Alan Jackson has always been seen as one of the most traditional figures in country music. His songs focused on family, faith, love, and everyday life. For many fans, his marriage represented stability in an industry often filled with chaos. He appeared calm, dependable, and deeply rooted in family values. This made later revelations about emotional distance inside his marriage especially uncomfortable. As Alan's career grew, his responsibilities grew with it. Touring schedules became longer, recording sessions more demanding, and public appearances constant. While his marriage remained intact on the surface, emotional gaps slowly formed behind the scenes. Long absences were not dramatic or scandalous, but they were real. Over time, being physically away turned into emotional distance. What made this situation publicly humiliating was not betrayal or explosive conflict. It was honesty. Alan later spoke openly about how his focus on work affected his marriage. These admissions were calm and reflective, but they revealed private struggles that had never been meant for public discussion. Once spoken aloud, those truths could not be taken back. His wife had spent years standing beside him with patience and strength. Supporting a partner whose career keeps them away from home requires sacrifice. When emotional distance was acknowledged publicly, it placed her quiet endurance under a spotlight. Even without blame, the exposure itself carried discomfort. The public began to look at their marriage differently. What once seemed perfect now appeared complicated. Fans re-examined interviews and performances, searching for signs they had missed. This kind of attention can feel intrusive, even when it comes from admiration. The humiliation here was subtle but real. It came from realizing that stability does not always equal closeness. A long marriage can survive while still carrying unspoken pain. Alan's honesty helped open conversations about emotional presence, but it also revealed how easily private issues become public when fame is involved. Repair followed these admissions. Growth, communication, and renewed effort played a role. Still, this chapter showed that even calm truths can hurt when shared openly. Emotional distance, once exposed, becomes part of a public narrative. And even without scandal, that exposure can quietly humiliate the people who lived through it. Number 1. Morgan Wallen. Morgan Wallen's rise in country music was fast and powerful. His voice, style, and chart success placed him among the most talked about artists of his generation. However, his career has also been marked by repeated controversies that extended far beyond music. These moments did not only affect him, they affected the people closest to him, especially romantic partners. Public behavior has consequences, and in Morgan's case, those consequences spread outward. Each controversy created waves of backlash across social media and news platforms. Anyone connected to him became part of the conversation, even if they had done nothing wrong. Romantic partners were pulled into public judgment simply because of association. For these women, the experience was humiliating in a quiet but heavy way. Strangers questioned their values, motives, and character. Silence was often interpreted as agreement, while speaking out invited criticism. There was no safe option. Being linked to someone under constant scrutiny meant carrying emotional weight that was never chosen. Some partners felt pressured to defend themselves publicly. Others stepped away quietly. In both cases, the public watched closely, forming opinions based on limited information. This turned personal relationships into public debates, stripping away privacy and dignity. What made this situation especially difficult was repetition. One incident might fade, but repeated controversies create a lasting cloud. Over time, association itself becomes a burden. Love turns into risk. Support becomes something that must be explained or justified. This type of humiliation is indirect but powerful. It does not come from a single act of betrayal. It comes from being judged for proximity. Fame magnifies mistakes, and those closest to the spotlight often feel the heat the most.